Mighty Mouse saved the day, or at least Saturday morning, for network television.
Mighty Mouse is one of the best things on television in 1987.
Mighty Mouse for Saturday morning TV for kids.
Save us, Mighty Mouse!
Oh, no, not this show.
New Adventures of Mighty Mouse, it really was truly the first foothold of what we've now take for granted for Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network.
It was part of the beginning of the whole renaissance of animation.
SpongeBob, Powerpuff Girls, or Dexter's Laboratory. None of that stuff would have happened without Mighty Mouse.
This is way before, South Park or Ren and Stimpy or, anything like that.
It was definitely ahead of its time because I think a lot of people didn't understand it.
It was so revolutionary, it was beyond understanding.
Critics loved it. It got written up in Time magazine, everywhere.
It had more of an impact just within the industry. I mean, literally everybody in the industry was going, wow, you worked on Mighty Mouse? Oh, great, good show.
I don't think people were ready for it. Maybe they're ready for it now. I hope people are ready for Mighty Mouse now.
Ralph Bakshi is an animator,
An eccentric cartoonist and a network programmer.
As far as everyone's saying it's great, I'm glad because I paid enough people to say that.
My earliest impression of Ralph, I didn't even know it, was I was a big fan of Rocket Robin Hood when I was a kid, and I had no idea that Ralph had actually worked on that show. And the Spider-Man show, of course, and Mighty Heroes.
Strong Man, Cuckoo Man, Tornado Man, Rope Man, and Diaper Man.
I did the Mighty Heroes. I did Deputy Dog. I did Tom Terrific. I mean, I spent 12, 15 years at Terry Toons doing kid stuff.
I was a big fan of Ralph's work from Terry Toons, That's where he started in the business, was doing children's stuff.
I'd followed his career since Fritz the Cat.
The first movie of his that I saw in the theater was actually Wizards, and I'd followed his later films, the Lord of the Rings and American Pop.
I took a job at Terry Toons because I won the cartooning medal in high school, and Terry Toons offered me a job, so I took it. I was so desperate to work with these cartoonists, desperate. Just to be sitting alongside a guy who spent his whole life drawing. I would have paid Terry Toons to let me come in.
John Kricfalusi and I met Ralph Bakshi in 1982. John somehow managed to get into Ralph's studio, which wasn't easy in those days. You couldn't just go into the studio and meet Ralph. He said, I don't know who you guys are. You seem interesting. You seem funny. This guy can draw. I'm going to take a chance on you for a few weeks and pay you and have you develop some stuff.
I call up Ralph, and Ralph says, I'm going to do Saturday morning cartoons. And I said, Saturday morning cartoons? You do all these X-rated features. How are you going to sell Saturday morning cartoons? Don't worry about it. And I said, okay, Ralph, well, I'll see you when you get in tomorrow. Bye. And he goes, wait a minute, hang on. Describe yourself to me. I said, well, 5'11", brown hair, kind of skinny. That's you, all right. See you, partner. And he hangs up. Next morning, 7 in the morning. Somebody pounding on my door. I went to open up the door, and I'm all like baggy-eyed and everything. It's Ralph. This huge fist grabs me, throws me in the car.
I spent a bunch of years working with John and the guys on some very good stuff. But me and John together were the old guy, the young kid, the X-rated animator doing Saturday morning. There's a lot of selling there that could happen. I spent 12, 15 years at Terry Toons doing kid stuff. No one understands that. I mean, spent my life doing kid stuff. It wasn't new to me, the restrictions. You know what I'm saying? John was new to me. but the restrictions weren't.
Ralph hired me to do development on these Saturday morning cartoons. And right away, I got Lynn Naylor in too, to help me with it.
No.
We're all in one room. So Ralph would pull up his chair right behind me, right? And this huge head would be over my shoulder the whole time I'm drawing. And he's smoking a cigarette, coughing in my ear and stuff. But we had a lot of fun.
Excuse me, RB, but are you sure this is my life story?
Just roll with it, baby. Just roll with it.
Nobody had tried to make a funny cartoon on Saturday morning for, I think, almost 20 years. I think, what was the last one? Probably George of the Jungle. Jay Ward was the last guy who actually tried telling jokes on a kid's cartoon, and then nothing.
The only kind of shows that they would buy were shows that either were based on toys, like He-Man, G.I. Joe, or based on somewhat known properties in other mediums like the Smurfs or Strawberry Shortcake. Ralph had his development meetings at ABC, NBC, all the shows that he pitched that we worked really hard on and that were funny got rejected. So now he's really mad, right? He's got one meeting left.
Well, that's a classic. You're not going to believe it. My car was packed with my stuff. I was living in a loft here. My car was packed. I was leaving town. I had called my wife and said, I'm coming home.
How he explained it to me was that he had pitched several ideas to CBS, and they didn't like any of them, and kind of out of desperation, he reached back into his memory bank for the old days, and he pitched Mighty Mouse.
I said, I have an idea. Mighty Mouse. And I didn't own the rights, but it didn't matter. Nobody owned the rights at that point. And she said she loved it.
Oh, I want quality, and I want quality that's going to be a hit. I mean, is that too much to ask?
So I went to a Viacom eventually and said, I want to do this. They gave me the rights. And I went back to Judy and gave her the rights.
We'll try to deliver your kids if it doesn't to talk down to them.
I got the call, Ralph has sold Mighty Mouse. I said, you're kidding. Is it real? Yes, it's real.
I guess I was having a fight with Ralph. So I had either been fired or quit or something over some development and stuff, which happens a lot. It's no big deal. It just, you work with Ralph, you're gonna get fired every few weeks.
Pearl, you mean?
Yes, Mike. These are your marching papers.
There's that pound on the door again, 7 in the morning, boom, 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 boom. I go to the door, open the door, I go, oh, it's the bear. And he just grabs me, get to work, I just sold Mighty Mouse. Ralph, you fired me. You're hired, shut the up.
To have Ralph Bakshi do a show for cartoon, you know, the wild man of cartoons, doing something for, you know, little kids on Saturday morning, that must have been, you know, a real big leap of faith.
And people say, why do you want to work with Ralph? He's crazy, he does X-rated pictures. Because he just might do something good.
That's the craziest idea I've heard since the one about the flying mouse.
One of these fiends is responsible for these dastardly dairy crimes. But which one is it? Ten-Face? No-Face? Ralph Man?
When I heard about Mighty Mouse and the pairing of John and Ralph, it made a weird kind of sense to me.
You were pairing the guy that was behind the Mighty Heroes. For me, that was great stuff that I'd grown up on, that I really revered. Not only the show itself, but the look and design of those characters. With the guy that had done the Harlem Shuffle video.
So when I heard that John and Ralph were going to work together, I was so excited.
If you're talking about a force of nature and a genius, you know, fighting over what the course of the show would be.
Remember when kids used to chew gum all the time and love it? Yeah. You guys got any ideas on
We
gum?
can make him a character.
Let's hear
Call
about
him
that. Let's hear
Billy
about
Gumwad.
that. Billy what?
Billy Gumwad. He could live in somebody's mouth. He's a piece of gum. He's got legs. He's got a big smile. He runs around.
Mighty Mouse was a mission for the artists, and we had some great artists on the show. We had Bruce Timm. Bruce Timm was my top layout artist.
Jim Reardon and Ed Bell, Andrew Stanton.
Jim Smith, Ken Boyer.
Eddie Fitzgerald.
Byron Vaughns did a lot of storyboards for us. Mike Kazaleh. Lynn Naylor, of course. Lynn Naylor was like backbone of the studio.
We were surrounded by people like Jim Gomez and
Jeff Pidgeon and Rich Moore.
Carol Holiday. Carol Holiday was a character designer, and she was a really good animator. Libby Simon, of course. Oh, Vicky Jenson. Vicky Jenson was the background painter. Vicky's a genius. Kent Butterworth, of course. Bob Jakeson's another guy that, you know, he became the greatest TV animator of all time. He completely revolutionized the way TV animation looks.
I don't think you could afford to put all the names in the same room now that came out of that first season. Ralph basically was too cheap to hire real television writers.
Oh boy, a whole quarter.
He didn't want to pay them, and so, but to give him credit, he also felt he was just gonna get sad, tired, same old television Saturday morning thinking. And he thought, I want fresh blood, and I also can get it cheap if I go to students coming right out of school. And he was right.
You still drawing?
He's still drawing.
I pay you $6.70 an hour. Let's see the character.
The gum chews you. Here's Billy Gumwad. A wacky new character brought to you from Bakshi Animation.
Ralph brought in a lot of people that never worked in animation before. He was willing to gamble with just artistic types and teach them the business.
I remember when the whole cluster of kids came over from Cal Arts that, you know, they went over and swiped them before graduation. and they were just amazing.
Ralph said, "Do you know the cheap writers we can hire?" So I said, "Well, that's right up my alley."
Like Jim, I was in school, and Andrew, we were all in CalArts together.
If you're going to take a bet on some young punk who's only like 21, 22, and pay him peanuts, and they're still going to give you some gold, he actually hit the bullseye pretty well with those guys.
I remember at the time, Ralph used to refer to us as the unemployables. So we couldn't get hired by any other place in town except for me.
My Bible lesson.
I could believe I hired such a bunch of young kids to do this.
The craziest mind was Tom Minton. He was sort of our head writer, and he was the seasoned guy.
Tom is an anarchist, basically. He was the craziest one of all of us, really. He was just a little older, and he hit it better.
Well, first of all, Tom Minton. If you ever spoke to Tom Minton, who comes from Arkansas or Kansas or somewhere, Dakota, somewhere obscene, you know, I mean, he's the strangest guy in the world. He wrote some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen. His anger, his take on the world. I used to talk a lot to Tom, and you know, how he felt about various foolishness of human beings, and you know, how people act, and you know, sort of the life cycle of idiocy that hangs on.
So Tom, I really need a gag for this thing.
This is reaction to what I said, Tom.
We're shooting a different location, so it looks like we're talking behind his back or something. They're gonna know it's the same background.
You can't talk to Tom Minton for more than 5 minutes without falling on the floor laughing.
Hey, buddy, could you spare a few one-liners? How about a pun, mister? A play on words? Anybody got a gag? Hasn't anybody got a sense of humor?
By the 1980s, cartoons weren't made by cartoonists anymore.
Most animated shows didn't really have a director per se. They had departments. They had a storyboard department where people would take a script and they would board it and they'd pass it on to the layout department. The layout department would do layouts, hand them on to the animation department, and people would animate, but there was nobody overseeing each particular episode, really. It was just more of like a sausage factory.
So they thought it was just insane that you would have an artist write a cartoon. Why would a cartoonist write a cartoon? What about Charlie Schultz? You know, what about Johnny Hart, Bill Watterson?
John's big secret is the way animation should be done. I have my own studio, so we did it the old-fashioned way, is to let the cartoonists write the material and do the storyboards, and then add gags. You know, that's just a tradition of animation.
The guideline is humor. I think if we make her laugh like we did last season in our new scripts, we're winners.
I'm an old fart. I'm an old man. I'm an old cartoonist. Why wouldn't we do it the right way?
To have that be the first kind of philosophy that you run into from a studio in your life as an animator is a pretty big thing. The level of trust that he put in us as artists, it was just great.
I'll let the guys perform. And you know what? They perform above. They can't believe that they're free and they perform well. That's the major Bakshi secret. You hire talented guys and tell them not what to do. A lot of studios hire talented guys and tell them how to do it. It's mindless. It boggles the imagination. It's like hiring Norman Rockwell and telling him how to draw.
What you need is good, solid management.
They got no script approval from CBS. They can do whatever they want. It's me. I'm going to okay anything. Now go do it and show me what you've been talking about all these years.
We wrote on legal pads, written with a Sharpie or with a pen, actually. And then we would give it to a person who used a typewriter who would type it up. No computers in those days at Ralph's studio.
And if anybody thought of anything that would make everybody else laugh, then it was good, you know, and we'd figure out a way to put it in.
We had 2 pieces of paper on the wall. One said dead or Canadian, and we were always debating on whether somebody was dead or Canadian. And then we had a list of fallback gags. Abraham Lincoln was number 1.
This ceramic Abe Lincoln will be smashed for certain.
Yeah, if you felt like putting Abraham Lincoln or Edinburgh or, hey, there's some executive at CBS that, let's put this person in there.
How original.
Thank you! Whether it was making fun of 60s science fiction films or making fun of Terry tunes or anything. You just want to make fun of like every convention conceivable, basically.
One episode, it was a parody of the Fountainhead. How many people even read Ayn Rand, you know, to get the joke? Didn't matter if you get the joke or not, it was still funny.
A fitting monument to my genius. I can't wait to build it.
We had characters that talk to the camera in the middle of an action, which doesn't sound at all radical now. At the time, that was considered completely radical.
And don't forget, always look both ways before crossing the street.
They make fun of the chipmunks.
Hey, Elway. Elway? Hey, man, anything you say, okay.
There were parodies of, like, the Justice League of America.
This meeting of the League of Super Rodents is hereby called to order.
But it was really social commentary, a very high order.
Don't they realize that I'm on a strict diet? My self-control is better than ever!
It was really about redefining Mighty Mouse. It wasn't about trying to uphold he didn't have some legacy that I think people were revering.
What do you remember Mighty Mouse saying? I come to save the day, and he flies in. That's all they remember, so we had a lot of leeway to play with.
I don't think anybody of us who worked on the show ever really thought the show was about Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse was just the kind of convenient umbrella.
It's all going according to my master plan.
I was just brimming with new characters that I was wanting to get on the screen. So we tended to write Mighty Mouse out of the cartoons. We'd find some excuse for him to go to the bathroom or something. And then he'd show up again at the end of the cartoon. So, oh, luckily Bat saved the day while I was gone.
You're a little late.
Well, the lights were against me.
Jim Reardon and John came up with this weird idea of Batman parody about a character called Bat who, he takes his mask off and he looks exactly the same underneath.
Jim just hit it the nail on the head with the Night of the Bat. I don't even know if we were looking for anything or if he was looking for anything. But once that got hit with the cow and the idea that George C. Scott was sort of inspired for it and the ha-ha. Moo! You just read it and you go, I want more of this. This is it. And then it was just chasing that muse of just trying to get the same feeling that you got from that script of Night of the Bat. That's all it was for me that whole season, was just trying to see if you were worthy of coming up with a scenario that matched that.
Aha! Yeah! As you can see, Bat, you are trapped in a milk dehydrating machine.
This is an utter mistake.
We developed other characters into really strong characters, like Petey Pate.
Petey Pate was imbalanced, and I think that was pretty evident to anybody watching.
You can't do this to me! I can't handle rejection.
Judy Price, after a while, started catching on to this, and how come I bought Mighty Mouse? Why isn't a Mighty Mouse in this show? So that's when Ralph would say, have him stop a train. So I was like, when in doubt, have him stop a train. That got to be like a running gag.
That was one of Ralph's big things. He would yell at us about that. Turn that mouse loose. You're featuring about everybody but the mouse. Put the mouse in the pictures. And we were kind of avoiding the mouse because other things are more interesting.
So the whole show was like Monty Python, where you just never knew what was going to happen.
Oh, Mighty Mouse, you're my hero. Please sign the tape on my glasses.
My theory about Ralph was that his cells regenerated every 7 days. The Ralph that came in on Monday would show up ready to, attack and pick on whoever was there and scream and yell and make a big noise and pound his chest.
What? Yell at someone? Eddie! It's not good enough. We need something else.
His voice would scare you. It was amazing what it could do.
The blow-ups that I would hear, the screaming and the yelling, it felt like home to me.
I scared the hell out of him is what I did.
What makes you think we're going to be on next year?
I was big. I come from Brooklyn when I talk this way.
Wait a minute, I'm talking. This is important.
I was pretty terrified that they wouldn't bring the pictures in. I was sitting at my desk like this every day.
Come on, give me one.
Guys pissed me off, but I love everybody. So I find them once in a while. Just let them know he's got to bring stuff in on schedule, Then I call him home and say, come back to work because I miss you.
By the end of the week, it was the Ralph that was, gentle and looking for hugs and, do you love me? Do you love me?
I do need love.
And even when he's ranting, it's still kind of like he's so there's like this core of likability about him.
I don't like the story. I don't like it. It was my idea, I think. I don't remember, but I don't really like that. So let's get another one.
We always appreciated Ralph. Ralph was crazy. And you never left work without a great story that day.
There are many Ralph stories. Many. Most of them are, I don't know how you're going to get them on. I mean, you can't put this stuff on the air, even now.
He could never remember any of our names. And he could remember Pidgeon. So he would compensate by saying Jeff's name all the time to make up for the fact that he couldn't remember. So he'd always be like, Pidgeon, 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 Pidgeon this, Pidgeon that.
I just remember hearing a story about Ralph on the phone with Standards and Practices, and he was listening to them, and they had all these grievances about, well, we'd like to change this and alter that and slow this down and cut this out. And at a certain point, Ralph went just like, well, wait a minute. So let me get this straight. I don't actually legally have to do anything you're saying. And they're just sort of like, well, yeah, technically that's true. And like Ralph hung up the phone.
One day, I drove into work, and I see Ralph is yelling at the dumpster. What had happened was Ralph had taken his false teeth out on his desk and put them in some paper from like a food wrapper, and the cleaning crew had thrown them away during the night. So he was having one of our directors dumpster dive to try and find his false teeth. The network censor was coming by to see the new episode, so he said, you guys are talking. Okay, Ralph. So I go in and show the censor the new episode, and he says, that's fine. And as he gets into his car, Kent pops out of the dumpster with the teeth, and Ralph takes them, jams them in his mouth, goes, see ya!
I went to go have lunch, and I was going to watch some of American Pop while I was at lunch. And so I'm watching, and all of a sudden Ralph comes over and starts sort of looking at it like, oh yeah, Connie did these drawings, and wow, I had to do this thing. And he starts, and all of a sudden I've got like commentary going.
Yes, you're going to have to watch my home movies.
So, I finish up my, potato chips and my sandwich, and okay, well, it's 1 o'clock, and so I pop the tape out, and I go back to work. So I'm working at my desk, drawing, doing my characters and stuff, and all of a sudden this shadow comes over the drawing, and I look up, and it's Ralph. He's like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, it's lunchtime's over, Ralph. I'm back to work. And he's like, nobody walked out of one of my films. You go back and you finished it. So I went back on company time, sat down, and finished watching American Pop.
Hey, what happened to the projector? Good heavens, man! What are you doing? Have you flipped your wig?
The episode Don't Touch That Dial, that was really commenting on what had happened and what was going on in television animation.
Hey, Rocky! Have you beaten that bat into powder yet?
I'm almost finished,
Jim Reardon wrote it, had a lot of Tom Minton jokes in it. That was kind of the homage to the garbage of Saturday morning.
Hey, look, these guys are telling jokes. We gotta stop them, okay? Let's select them out with extreme prejudice.
The whole idea of that was we're gonna look at all these different cartoons that are on Saturday mornings and lambaste them.
The actual last line of Don't Touch That Dial wasn't, here's what television is all about. It was, but enough lies and hypocrisy. Now a word from our sponsor. And they said you can't mention, FCC rules say you can't mention commercial content and program content, so we had to change it around. It's a rare moment that we had anything changed like that, but that's one of the times.
But enough of this lying and hypocrisy. Time for what television's really about.
Mighty Mouse spoke about America and America's love of television and the stupidity of television in its day.
Now I know why they call television a medium, because nothing on it is rare or well done.
Mighty's wedlock whimsy when he's going to get married, and we deliberately wrote ourselves into a corner. Can't get married, you'll change the character forever. Don't want to do that.
He's supposed to marry Pearl Pure, and he gets cold feet, and he doesn't want to do it. And what we wrote was, and it was suddenly the screen goes white, and a video pirate comes on the air, live action. We're going to have Mike Kazaleh, one of the layout guys, wear like a paper pirate hat, and say, yo-ho, prepare to be disgusted, and have one of our layout guys sit on a cake. And this network said, you cannot do a video pirate.
So we had to come up with something, and we thought, well, we'll do live action. And we had no money to do live action, so I went home and got my NEC Betamax camera. Just stay in the sun. I just say it's a color test.
So we had Ed Bell, one of the layout guys, drawing the scene in live action, and then he just breaks down and has like a Shatner-like moment and says, I can't marry him.
I can't go through with it! I can't do it! I can't marry him!
And Ralph said, this'll teach the network we can do live action.
I can't go through with it! I can't do it! I can't marry him!
Well, that's why I became a lodge brother. I wanted to help people less fortunate than me.
I know someone else like that.
The flower sniffing controversy. I don't even know why this was a controversy. If you actually watch the story and see the context, there's a little flower girl Tom Minton's littlest tramp, and she stands on a street corner with flowers trying to sell them to people.
Please buy my flower.
There's this mean guy based on Kirk Douglas, and at one point, he crushes her flower. And Mighty Mouse shows up just afterwards, and because he's nice to her, she gives him the only thing she has, and it's this crushed flower. And he puts it in his pocket, and later, Mighty Mouse thinks back to the flower girl. He says, you know, I knew somebody like that, and smells it like he would smell a flower, and it goes up his nose.
Somebody's parents saw it and freaked out and called, was it Reverend Wildman, I think might have been his name?
It was never intended to be a cocaine gag in any way, shape, or form.
And pretty soon we were on the front page of the LA Daily News, and the phone was ringing off the hook, and everybody wanted to talk to Ralph.
It just got blown out of proportion by that Reverend Wildman and then the whole media attention. It was just all silly.
And the weird thing is, there's plenty of stuff in the cartoon that you could go after.
At the end of the episode, Kirk Douglas marries a tiny little female mouse and gives her a soul kiss, and they get in a convertible, and it drives away and explodes in a mushroom cloud, and nobody says a word about that.
There's all kinds of stuff that they could have jumped all over. Instead, they just made something up. There are a lot of Mighty Mouse cartoons that just don't make any sense from beginning to end. It's just weird stuff happening.
Come on, boy, faster!
But when we got it, I think we did pretty good. If you watch them now, they're still funny.
Sometimes it was great, sometimes it was a little slipshod, but that didn't matter. I think it was the energy and the integrity, the artistic integrity like I was talking about behind the show that made it what it is.
Ralph once said, you know, a film or a cartoon is only good if it's a reaction against something else. And Mighty Mouse was a reaction against a lot of mediocrity.
Whatever this thing is, it's a real drag.
It's not about the ratings. It's not even about a good picture. I told them, if your picture is good or bad that we make, it's not the issue. You do your best, and it's about the process. The process of making is everything. You know, if the picture turns out good, great. If it turns out bad, great. You've learned something. But you've also made that film. So to me, it's always about the art. So the guys that hung in there with me loved the work. Those kids that did Mighty Mouse were kids out of school. On schedule, on budget, changed the industry. They did. And everyone's been copying him since then.
Well, at least these things aren't doing any harm.
Whoever was sitting at those desks were exceptional. Proved by what's become with most of their lives. You know what I'm saying? So they were exceptional artists, and what they drew was brilliant.
Everybody on the show was really talented. It's not surprising that a lot of these people have gone on, you know, to greater things.
It wouldn't have happened without Ralph. The key ingredient in all of this is Ralph. No executive ever would have bought that stuff. Ralph was the one that made this happen. He was the turning point in modern cartoon history.
All we did is act as cartoonists. CBS allowed us, I allowed you, and you allowed me. And the minute you forget that, you're going to start doing what the other studios do, is start taking the art form too seriously.
Ralph is a miracle man. he pulled magic out of himself and managed to convince them to put this thing on the screen.
We've got a policed artist sketch of the monster, Mighty Mouse.
Gad, he's a handsome rogue.
It had to do more about who we are as human beings than it had to do with the mouse. And I think that's basically why I love the show. You have to be able to say something that means something. And that's what's great about Mighty Mouse.
One time I asked him, why aren't we getting any notes from the network? Every show I worked on has gotten tons of notes. He said, you got notes, you didn't see them, I burned them. He was probably not kidding.
Oh no! Not this time! Hold it! Wait! Stop the music! So, you're the one who's been changing the channels on me, hmm? You naughty little boy!
You do it, Minton, you do it!
Red 1, Red 2, get in my room right now!
You can draw, we'll draw too, draw right too.
And he's gonna hate that. He's never heard me do him.
Yeah, then we're gonna do this, and it'll be great!
Johnny, it's f***ing great! Make this cartoon!